James, surcharges, right? We've discussed this before. Every shipper I've ever spoken to has moaned about liner surcharges. I'm sure you're more of a hate-hate relationship with surcharges than love-hate. Why are they so frustrating for your members? What's your advice to them on managing them this year?
So yeah, surcharges are the bane of shippers' lives because what they do, Mike, is they cause embarrassment, they cause difficult conversations with their financial superiors and so on. Because what it does, they go out of budget. They're unexpected costs. They weren't in the budget. They weren't in the agreed rates. They thought that they were going to pay for this shipment, and suddenly they thought they were going to pay X, and it comes in at 1.5 times X, and they've suddenly got an excess spend, which they've got to justify and explain internally. And given the discipline that these businesses have over other elements of their costs, from other suppliers, where they are very much in control of those costs and are able to command, are very often, that conversation. Suddenly, shippers are price takers in this market and always have been, and they have that frustration that this is something pretty much beyond their control. So that over the years I've dealt with it, that seems to be the underlying source of this huge frustration the shippers have. The other one that just while we're talking about it, Mike, because it's a really important insight, because you're right, that surcharges are going to be a big thing in 26. But the thing that shippers don't understand is, okay, so the terminal charges have gone up, or some other cost element for the carriers has risen. It doesn't seem to get challenged. Why have those charges gone up? Why have they suddenly gone up without notice? That the cost impact is suddenly transmitted almost in real time through to the end customer. Where is the pushback by the carrier on the terminal saying, we're not paying that? Come on, we've got an agreement. Why manage your costs more carefully? Because that's exactly the conversation that a shipper would have with any other supplier. So what they're really looking for is the same sort of discipline and challenge and pushback on those costs to try to, just ask the questions and mitigate the impact. How you deal with them, to your question, I think we're back to this perennial question of, as Robert was saying, if you're in a partnership, if you've got a contract, if you've got a good working relationship with a shipping line or any carrier for that matter, you need to be having those honest and transparent conversations. Some of the costs are way beyond the control of any one party. And, there's no real dispute about the effects of currency movements, the effects of fuel cost movements, BAFs and CAFs, that's why they're in a separate category. But how some of these other unexpected costs are transmitted, it needs a better conversation. There needs to be a little bit of pain sharing, I think, in times. Shippers get a little bit suspicious that they're seen as the soft touch, that any impact on the costs can be simply recovered because there's nowhere else to go. So that explains some of the souring of the relationship. So the way forward is to have those better quality conversations. And that means, and I accept this, that means, looking at a much more sort of contractual based relationship with your carriers. And yet we're in a market where, for all sorts of reasons, we're thinking rates might fall. And I'm sure there's a lot of head scratching going on as we go into contract season about what proportion of your volume you actually put into your contract mix.
Well, that takes me away from the opaqueness of surcharges. One of the great mysteries of our market. I remember about 20 odd years ago, we were all sitting around talking about this in a news desk, and we were like, "Well, what?" I think it must have been a down market around about the turn of the century, and we were like, "Imagine if they just put a seal surcharge on, just for the seal that goes on the back of the container." And 2 weeks later, lo and behold, someone announced the seal surcharge. You're like, "Did we move the market there? Did we? Was that us, or was it just an accident?" Uh, yeah, it's one of the great mysteries up there with black holes.
Mike, we run a competition every now and again when things get really bad in GSF called Surcharge of the Week. Tell us the most imaginative, creative way that carriers have invented to earn a little bit more money. And I've got quite an interesting collection. And some of these surcharges have been called out, most notably, I think, by the Federal Maritime Commission in their investigation of the detention and demurrage charges in the States a couple of years ago. That report has got a lot of lessons, I think, for the rest of the industry.